Hey, this your boy, E Hood, coming to you again with another message. Listen, I want to speak to you right now about something that Paul called another gospel, another type of gospel. This is really going to, shall I say, give you some real insight on a difference between how we should be functioning and how we shouldn't be functioning as a body of Christ. And I'm going to Galatians chapter 1, and I'll be reading from the Amplified. And this is what he said over in verse 6. I am surprised and astonished that you are so quickly turning renegade and deserting him who invited and called you by the grace, unmerited favor, Jesus, of Christ, the Messiah, and that you are transferring your allegiance to a different, even an opposition gospel. Paul said, I am shocked that you have, turned so quickly from grace into another kind of gospel. And watch what this gospel is. Watch this here. Not that there is or could be any other genuine gospel, but there are obviously some who are troubling and disturbing and bewildering you with a different kind of teaching which they offer as a gospel, Jesus, and want to pervert and distort the gospel of Christ, the Messiah, into something which it absolutely is not. Paul is saying, you have people that then came to you after you have received the grace, the gospel of grace. Lord, have mercy, Jesus. And you have been deceived into getting this other kind of gospel. This other kind of gospel, what Paul is speaking on, is law. Jesus. They have made versus you receiving the grace factor to where you just receive Jesus in spite of you. Just receive him. Now here comes another kind of gospel, which tells you Jesus did it on the cross. Yeah. But in order for blessings to come through, you have to, watch this here. Now, y'all know I'm always bringing this stuff because it's true. It's in the Bible. You have to tithe, go to church, pray in tongues, got to honor the man of God, honor the woman of God, support the woman of God, support the man of God, set them on a pedestal, obey them, submit to them. And then when you do all this here, now the windows of heaven have opened up for you. Paul called that another type of gospel. Watch this here. And Paul said this here in verse 8. But even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to and different from that which we preach to you, let him be accursed, anathema, devoted to destruction, doomed to eternal punishment. Paul said, if we, or even an angel come and preach to you any other gospel than what I have brought to you, which is the gospel of grace, Paul said, let them be cut off. Anathema means to be cut off. Literally, cut off. And Paul said over in verse 9, just in case we didn't believe him then, in verse 8, Paul brought it right back in verse 9 and said, as we said before, so I now say again, if anyone is preaching to you a gospel different from or contrary to that which you received from us, Let him be accursed, anathema, devoted to destruction, doomed to eternal punishment. Paul said, if you didn't believe me the first time I said, let me say it again. If anybody come to you preaching another kind of gospel, anything contrary to what I've taught you, and Paul brought the gospel of grace, something that he did not deserve. And Paul was the top Pharisees in his class. Paul said that he excelled over all his classmates, and he was diligent in the law. And as a matter of fact, Paul was so diligent where he went out and actually was persecuting, killing all the Christians who ever spoke about Jesus. He was killing them, putting them in prison. Paul had the whole Christian nation in fear of him. And Paul said, I was the captain of that ship there. I know all about law. I have perfected it more than any of us. And Paul said, but then I was on the road to Damascus. And that light hit me, y'all. I'm telling you, that light hit me, and I ain't been the same since. And Paul said, now all I want, all the stuff that I've learned, Paul said, I count that mess as dung. All I want to know is Jesus in his crucifixion and his resurrection. Paul had a revelation of the grace of Jesus Christ more than anybody in the Bible. And he was the leader of the law. Look at God use, folks. You never know what God will use you for. You never know. But see, when you taught another type of gospel, you'll never find out. It's going to take you getting hit by the light, which is the word, so you can figure out what you've been called to do. And when you figure out what you've been called to do, you're going to realize that it's only by grace that you've been called to do it. It's only by grace that you can even function in it. It's only by grace that you can even be productive in it. When the light hits you. Everybody got a road to Damascus. The question is, where you see that light? The light of grace. Not another type of gospel. That stuff will get you in eternal punishment. Paul said, but the gospel of grace, Jesus, is what's happening. The gospel of grace. It's time to walk in that gospel of grace. I know we hear a lot of grace messages and they put the law with it. How? I don't understand it. I don't understand that. How you can speak a whole hour of grace message and then say, okay, well, it's time for tithe. God, dog. And say, it's time for tithing, y'all. That's tithe so the windows of heaven go, wait a minute, now I thought you just got to do preaching grace for about an hour. Now we got to tithe. You see how that sound? Grace, tithe, grace, tithe. That don't even go together. That just distorted the whole grace message. Paul said that's another type of gospel. People, we have to grow in this here grace factor. That's the only thing that's going to take us to another level in God. It's actually growing in his grace towards us. That's it. Nothing else. The law will keep us from growing in his grace. The law is what separates us from God. Lord, have mercy. Grow in grace. And watch the light open your mind to a whole nother revelation of who Jesus is. This your boy, Ehud, bring you another message. And oh yeah, I approve this message. And I'm out. Peace.